Story 1. The ability to run or bike around the neighborhood all day without worries. We would play in the woods or down at the creek. No internet, no cell phones, just my friends having a good time outdoors. Story 2. Where I come from, it definitely snowed a lot. Snow up to 10 inches would cover the ground for weeks multiple times during each winter. Now it's basically just 3 days a season when you wake up to a little bit of snow that melts during the day, and it makes me sad. Story 3. I was thinking about how we used to burn compact discs, record television shows on VHS tapes, and wait for our favorite songs to play on the radio just to record them on a cassette. Now everything is instant, but back then, it felt like a mission. Story 4. Rushing to the bathroom during a commercial break of a television show, only to hear it return as you were still inside, forcing you to hurry back. Story 5. Being a free-range kid meant leaving the house in the morning on my bike and not having to return until dinner. Then I would go back out again until the street lights came on. Story 6. There was no internet. The phone was connected to a wire, and anyone could pick it up if they were nearby. The cinema was a great outing, and everyone respected that people wanted to watch the film. On the positive side, there were no pictures or videos of me being drunk and foolish to come back to haunt me. Story 7. Memorizing many phone numbers. Being home on time to watch your show. Summers without air conditioning. Going to the park alone. Story 8. The fine art of opening multiple windows at once to slowly load images over the course of many minutes. Story 9. Freedom from constant screen time. My favorite memories, which I took for granted at the time, include having dinner out without cell phones, family vacations based on genuine quality time, and truly watching a show or a movie without multitasking. As we grow older, I miss the ability to disconnect from work at the end of the workday. I long for the days when work stayed at work. Story 10. Really showing my age here. Pressing the button in a telephone box and getting excited when you received your change. Story 11. Reading all your comments honestly brought a tear to my eye. It reminded me of how much better things felt back then. Thank you to everyone who shared their memories. It is amazing to relive these moments together. Story 12. Arguing about hypothetical situations when no one knew what they were talking about and nobody had any way to fact-check anything. Nowadays, children can access the entire internet from their pockets and find answers in seconds. Story 13. Missing an episode of your favorite television show and knowing you will never get to see it unless it is rerun in the summer. I was a child long before video cassette recorders were introduced. Story 14. Leaving the house after Saturday morning cartoons, knowing all your friends would leave their homes at the same time, spending the entire day outside until the streetlights came on, with no ability to communicate with anyone, walking or biking to and from school with your friends, playing in the street, literally in the middle of it, until someone yelled, "Car," and you waited for it to pass. Those bushes in the woods that seemed to sprout magazines. Mowing yards for money on your own, without even asking your parents. Ring and run. Feeling excited when the phone rang or someone knocked on the door. Coming home from school, letting myself in, making a quick snack, and heading straight back out to hang with the guys I just walked home with. Sick days with Bob Barker. Toilet papering houses. Riding your bicycle like you owned the streets. Story 15. Walking down the street, picking apples, pears, and blackberries. No charge. Then going to the spring to sip sweet water. It was great. Story 16. I left the house for hours with no way to contact anyone. If the one street light we had came on while I was not home, I was in serious trouble. Story 17. Being able to search for something online and actually find your answer, instead of navigating through AI-generated blogs, unrelated short videos, advertisements, and pop-up screens asking for notification permissions. Story 18. Trick or treat throughout several neighborhoods without worrying about your safety or someone tampering with the treats. Story 19. Going to Blockbuster on a Friday evening as a family felt like the weekend had arrived. The process of going there, debating, and choosing the right movie made us much more invested than when my kids watch a movie on Netflix. Story 20. The freedom of not constantly being connected, plugged in, or tracked is significant. There was a sense of responsibility and trust that came with visiting a friend's house for the weekend, where you spent time together and returned home safely. My nephew has never experienced a sleepover and is always under surveillance. It is unfortunate that he will never have the opportunity to enjoy a weekend unplugged. Story 21. Selling Girl Scout cookies required us to actively sell the product. This meant dressing presentably in our uniform and walking door to door. We had to pitch the delicious cookies and explain how the funds would be used. We needed to act confident even if we felt shy. We learned to handle money and count change. We also had to be cautious of individuals our parents had warned us about, usually by avoiding their homes and resisting any attempts at manipulation. Finally, we had to deliver the product once it was received. It was an excellent lesson in growing up and taking responsibility for ourselves. Story 22. Not expecting or even thinking about entitlement to things. When I was a child, it never occurred to me that I was owed anything simply because I wanted it. If something was difficult, you dealt with it. If you didn't get what you wanted, that was life. There wasn't this expectation that every struggle needed a label, every desire needed validation, or that fairness meant receiving special treatment. You worked with what you had, and if you wanted more, you earned it. Story 23. Free-range life. Mom pushed us out the door in the morning and said dinner is at 5 o'clock. We went wherever we wanted until then. We had many open fields, woods, and creeks around. Riding bicycles without helmets, just the wind blowing through our hair. I feel very lucky to have had that freedom. This was the 1960s. Story 24. Having to make a doctor's appointment, followed by a test and a waiting period for results, can be stressful. If you think you were pregnant, it could take several days before you find out. Story 25. Wanting to know the answer to a question, you would call the research librarian number so the librarian could find the answer and call you back. Story 26. Mastering the timing between the DJ's intro and outro of a song on the radio is essential for starting your mixtape. Story 27. Playdates unescorted by adults at neighbors' homes, in each other's yards, and at the neighborhood lunch counters, ice cream shops, and candy stores. Story 28. The heartbreak of missing the one airing that year of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Story 29. Busy signals. Pressing 0 for the operator. Catching fireflies, playing frozen statues, reading comic books, getting the latest Nancy Drew, hanging out by the phone waiting for the special guy to call, and having a fit if someone else was using the phone. Hang up already. He said he'd call at 5. Playing board games like Monopoly for hours. Making forts in the trees. Biking without helmets, drinking from the hose. Sliding down the hot slides, jungle gyms, monkey bars, dodgeball, tetherball. Story 30. This is region-specific, but it represents freedom. I could go anywhere I wanted within a certain boundary, and that boundary expanded with age. After elementary school, I was free to roam. Kids today are often not allowed to go up the street unsupervised. We could go to the park or wander around the woods. We learned how to interact with other children and understand social norms. We developed problem-solving skills when things did not go our way, learned how to deal with or avoid bullies, and knew how to defend ourselves or escape when faced with danger. This experience gave us resilience and a strong sense of awareness. In the last 10 to 20 years, children have not had to learn these skills because parents have always been right there. While their intentions were to protect, the outcomes suggest this may have been to their detriment. Story 31. Sitting with my boombox and my finger on the record button, waiting for the DJ to stop talking so I could record a song. Story 32. Going to Blockbuster on a Friday night and feeling excited about having access to one movie or game for the weekend. Story 33. Being bullied and punished for wetting your pants, including being forced to wear the underwear on your head and stand in a corner for hours. Story 34. Going to the Saturday matinee to watch a G-rated movie, mainly to wait for the first reel to end and the manager to appear and pick one of our tickets for the door prize, which was usually either a toy from the toy department in the basement of the hardware store across the street or some cool promotional items. I won a Spider-Man bank and promotional posters of an NHL player who I will not name. Story 35. How to crawl under your desk, Cover your head, and do not look at the flash. Always know where the nearest fallout shelter is. Story 36. Dial-up internet. The screeching sound as it starts up, the incredibly slow speeds, and phone calls interrupting the connection. Those lucky kids will never have to experience any of it. Story 37. Nickelodeon has great cartoons and actual shows. Teen Nick and Nick at Night featured George Lopez. I miss television with commercials so much. Story 38. Playing outside is enjoyable, such as going to the neighbor's house to play video games, biking, or playing doorbell ditching, without getting caught. Story 39. The absolute silence of no internet, no television, no video games, no central air or heat, no indoor running water in the house, and no radio or any other musical source except rarely. That was my childhood. I am the last of the baby boomers, born in November 1964. Story 40. I got on my bike and rode wherever my little legs could take me, knowing I didn't have to worry about getting home before sundown when the streetlights came on. Such freedom and carefree recklessness. Story 41. America is respected. It is nice to walk up to a used bookstore and find a decent book for a quarter. But mostly, it is about the American experience. Story 42. Phone calls are preferred after 9 p.m. when it is free. I grew up when mobile phones like the Nokia 3210 were the real deal. Texting took longer as we had to use the number keys, and there was a cost for each text. If I wanted to hang out with friends, I would just show up at their doorstep, and they would do the same. Story 43. Being able to entertain themselves without a screen is important. They can play for hours by coloring, making origami, baking in the kitchen, and building with Lincoln Logs and Lego. Story 44. Recording songs from the radio on old cassette tapes using tape on the top and trying to pause when the DJ started talking. Story 45. You used to have a ready-made excuse to leave the house, going to the library to do research on a class assignment. Once you were out the door, you could go anywhere if you were the adventurous type, or you could actually go to the library and meet your friends there. Not much needs to be done at the library anymore, so I doubt this tactic for brief teenage freedom still works. Story 46. How to make a phone call with a rotary dial and handle the internet disconnecting when someone accidentally picks up the phone in another room. Story 47. Getting a personal pan pizza for participating in the Book It program was a treat. Pizza Hut is not the same as it used to be, but in the past, it was wonderful. Story 48. There was literally nothing on the television. No broadcasts were being transmitted on any of the 3 channels that existed. Story 49. Honestly, it might be a simple answer, but Toys R Us was my favorite. I loved going there as a kid. It truly had everything. Bikes, radio-controlled cars, Hot Wheels, Legos, model rockets, and gaming stations set up to play. Today's kids will never know what they missed out on. Story 50. Not knowing where your parents were or if you would be picked up if they were late. There was no cell phone. Story 51. Keep a fresh mind and relax. That is what the telephone does these days. I'm getting tired of playing all day in the street with my friends, making dirt cubes and cakes. Story 52. The telephone line signal indicates a busy signal. Rotary dial phones required waiting for the dial to return after dialing the number. Waiting for the television station to start broadcasting because it was 5:59 and not 6 a.m. Waiting for the television to warm up before the picture could be displayed. Hearing the ultra-high-pitched noise of cathode ray tube televisions. Rewinding video cassette tapes. Story 53. The frustration of asking your parents if you can stay up late to watch something on television, them saying yes on autopilot to make you go away, being told to go to bed right as the show you wanted to watch is starting, you protest, and then they use your reaction as evidence that you were tired. Story 54. Not needing any digital box for cable or antenna reception and connecting the cable or antenna directly to the television or video cassette recorder without worrying about signal quality at all. Story 55. Having to search for 50 pence to put into the meter for emergency electricity. Using a rediffusion switch on the wall to change the TV channel with only BBC One, BBC Two, and Tyne-Tees television to choose from. Having a box on the back of the television where you had to insert coins for rental to watch anything. Waiting for the postman on Saturday mornings to deliver my dad's gyro and hoping it arrived before the post office closed to cash it. £1 notes and halfpence coins. Story 56. Finding a small store that sells toys based on shows you love is like discovering a complete vehicle Voltron next to the Generation 1 Optimus Prime and the Batman, the animated series figure with tech wings. Story 57. I'm a 2000s kid. You couldn't pause or fast forward the television. Playing outside in the street. Only having television channels 1 to 5. Not having Wi-Fi. Having a non-smartphone. I actually miss only having the television. Nowadays, it's televisions, laptops, tablets, and video games all at once. You get everything immediately. Before, you had to wait. Story 58. Space hoppers, chopper bicycles, mercury mazes, making a mix cassette for your girlfriend, or recording the top of the pops. Story 59. Having a billion bugs stuck to the grill after a 3-hour car ride. I used to try to identify as many as I could. Now, there are almost none. Story 60. Waking up early on Saturday mornings for cartoons on television, without the distraction of phones, laptops, or computers, was a simple pleasure. Story 61. Communal magazine-based pornography led to gatherings where people would look at them together. Vita Garman taught me so much about female anatomy long before I even reached puberty. It seems innocent compared to the content that is now available at the touch of a button. Story 62. The world after September 11th is not the same as it was before. The freedom we enjoyed prior to that date is likely gone forever. Story 63. In the 90s, I told a friend I would see them at 1 p.m. on Saturday by the cinema. I waited until 3 p.m. in case they were on the way and did not show up. Story 64. Going to the video rental store as a teenager and seeing friends, there was always a fun experience. There was an adult section in the back with a black curtain. We would laugh at all the adults coming out of there and sometimes sneak back to look at the covers and just enjoy a good laugh. Story 65. I miss the days of being 7 years old, relaxing, watching cartoons, and opening a pack of candy cigarettes. Story 66. The only reason it seemed like the good old days is that everyone thinks they want to be young again. Having parents who did not care where you were or what might be happening to you is not something to be nostalgic about. Story 67. In 2nd grade, I had a crush on a boy with a common last name. Even in our small town, there were quite a few in the phone book. One night, my older brother helped me build the courage to call all of them until we found the right one. These days, my kids simply add other kids to messaging apps. They will never experience the same thing I did. Story 68. Catching a train at 1 p.m. with friends to go to a beach 30 minutes away or to the mall 90 minutes away and being gone all day without phones. Story 69. I agree with the childhood memories and would like to add a grown-up memory. Work stayed at work. It rarely followed anyone home, except for some like on-call surgeons. For most regular jobs, work remained at the office when you left, and you were truly free on your own time. I think that's what people really miss, the feeling of being truly free. Whether it's because your mom can't call you on a cell phone and will just wait for you to come home in the evening, or knowing that you don't have to check work email multiple times over the weekend so your supervisor knows you are dedicated enough for a cost of living raise. We're never truly free anymore. Story 70. Calling the request line of the local radio station and hoping the DJ will play the song. Story 71. Television would just end for the night. I told that to my niece and nephew when they were around 8 to 10, and it floored them. Yes, at midnight or 1 o'clock they played the national anthem, and then suddenly either gray static or color bars appeared. Oh, and we had about 7 to 9 stations between very high frequency and ultra high frequency. Story 72. The primary experience I hope for is being disciplined with a wooden paddle at school and wooden sticks or leather belts at home. Story 73. Quality television had only 4 channels, prompting dramas and sitcoms to be well written to secure screen time. Today, it seems the focus is on broadcasting anything and everything, hoping that something popular will occasionally emerge. Story 74. Pushing the cigarette lighter in the car and briefly touching it caused a mild ring-shaped burn. Waiting up to a year for a movie to be released on beta or VHS was also frustrating. Story 75. Collecting songs, making mixtapes, or burning CDs, and handing them to your crush. For every song, I wrote a little note about why I chose it. Situation, feeling, memory, and more. Now everything is instant and available at any time. Story 76. Sitting outside the pub in the car, sipping Coca-Cola from a glass bottle because children are not allowed inside. Story 77. Not having to worry about politics is important. I've seen children discussing how they might move because their parents fear deportation. There are 6-year-olds at my local playground saying, "Your body, my choice," because that is what they hear on the news. As someone who babysits frequently, I notice that many young children are aware of aspects of the real world that they shouldn't be. Story 78. Television networks interrupting routine programming to broadcast live coverage of a space shuttle flight. I'm not talking about a flight into space. I'm referring to when NASA was testing whether the vehicle would glide. Story 79. I remember Saturday morning shows featuring live presenters, games, and cartoons. I used to watch Smile with Nev the Bear, but that kind of programming doesn't exist anymore. Story 80. Not nearly as old as most of the people here, but searching for information on a new game used to be a lot harder. Oftentimes, the only way to know what was coming was through magazines like Game Informer or Nintendo Power. If you were lucky, it might get a television advertisement that made sense or showed what the game was like. As I got older and YouTube grew, it gradually shifted into what it is now. However, in the early 2000s to 2010s, it was really a gamble. I don't think a game like Metal Gear Solid 2, which did not feature Snake as the protagonist, would work these days. Now, the moment a game is announced, it is being watched by billions of viewers and might even be data mined or leaked. Story 81. Being able to go anywhere without being monitored on children's phones or tags is important. Walking to and from school is significant in many communities where busing is not standard. Story 82. Phone numbers that started with alphabetical letters. Ours was tuxedo, which meant dialing to you first. Of course, the T and you were associated with numbers on the circular phone dial. Story 83. Illegal online gambling. People complaining about bad losses on their legal gambling accounts have never experienced the need to wire money to a foreign entity and hope that the funds appear in their 5 Dimes account, only to receive a foreign check from an obscure bank whenever they wanted to withdraw. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.